Wonderful. It looks like we are here. Awesome. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Health, Wisdom, and Wealth TV show. I'm your host, Lynn Hawkins, and I'm so excited about our guest today, Dr. Susan Lovele. This is the time for you to clear your desk, get a piece of paper, get some paper, get your pen, get a glass of water or your favorite beverage, tea, whatever, and join us for what's going to be an exciting conversation. Listen, let go, and live through the next decades, thriving through the next decades. Let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Lovele. She's amazing, and I'm so grateful that she's taken the time to meet with us today as a former professional ballerina, turned medical doctor, plastic surgeon for 22 years, and a lifelong health nut. I'm just so excited to welcome you, Dr. Lovele, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Bila. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we're just going to get right into our questions of the day, because I am certain that, our audience, after hearing even that little bit, want to know, ballerina to medical doctor? Well, Dr. Lovele, yes, a former professional ballerina and a plastic surgeon for over 22 years, is a lifelong health nut and now moving through life as the Thrive architect. She's always been passionate about helping people heal and transform their bodies, minds, and spirits so that they can live the vibrant lives that they want and deserve. Her view to physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual growth, she knows and wants you to know it's achievable and sustainable. So once again, Dr. Susan, welcome.
Thank you so much for being. I'm so excited to be able to be here with you today.
Well, not as excited as I am, because I truly do want to hear this story. So tell us a little bit more about you and your journey to becoming this healthy living advocate, a medical doctor, and helping people just transform their lives.
Yeah. It seems like they're all disconnected, doesn't it? Dancing, doctor, plastics, but they all are. When you hear the whole story, it all really makes sense. So I have to take us back a little bit, back to when I was 6, believe it or not. And when I was 6, I decided then that I was going to be a doctor. And I did that because I fell in love with my pediatrician. I had seen him a lot. I tended to have a lot of throat irritation, and seen him a lot. And I just loved what he did. And I told him when I was 6 that I was going to be a doctor. And he told me at that age that when I was ready, I should come back and he would write a letter and help me get into medical school. Well, guess what? 20 plus years later, he did. So I had to say, though, it wasn't that straight line from 6 years old to medical school. In between was when I did dancing. And that was because my mother didn't like the fact that Saturday mornings I was kind of hanging out, just watching comics and TV and everything. And she said, we're going to go do something with Saturdays. And she took me to dance classes. And that led to me eventually becoming a professional ballerina, traveling the world and getting an education that way that I could have never gotten any other thing. But, dancing is hard. And some of the things that I did along then, trying to stay thin, trying to, always work, led to some of the issues that I was going to see later on in life. We'll talk about those later. But eventually it got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. It hurt more than it was fun. And that's when I turned back to doing what I had wanted to do when I was 6, and that was to become a doctor. So I applied, got into medical school in New York City, and then went through medical school and became a plastic surgeon. And people ask me, why did I go into plastics out of all of the things that you could possibly do? And it was because when I did internal medicine and family medicine, it seemed to me it was really like people had chronic conditions. They would come in, they would get a pill, and then they would go out and they'd be back the next month and the month after that with the same issues over and over and over. And I didn't want to do that. I went into, we did plastics, that rotation. People came in, they had a surgery, boom, you changed their lives and they went on with their lives. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people transform. And so that's what I did for the next 22 years. But unfortunately, especially towards the end, all of those things I talked about, when I was dancing, that the eating whatever you wanted, eating junk, not taking care of your body. By this time, I had moved to North Carolina from New York City. I was born and raised in New York City. And, I got enamored of all of the fried chicken and the biscuits and the gravy. And I put on about 35 pounds. And I'm short, I'm 5'2". So that was a lot of weight, but it wasn't just the weight. It was the fatigue. It was the pain, the joint pain. And I literally ended up in the intensive care unit 3 times in the space of 1 year. And that third time was enough for me to say, okay, I have to get my life in order. Traditional medicine couldn't do it. It was functional medicine. We'll talk a little bit about what functional medicine is later that actually helped me heal. And eventually I realized that the transformation that I wanted to help people with all along wasn't necessarily from the outside in. It was more from the inside out. And that's why I do what I do today.
Wow. That is not just compelling, but that is an intriguing story. And it's packing so much on the front end of what I know that, makes such a difference to you in the work that you do. Mm-hmm. But I also know, you mentioned functional medicine. There are a lot of misconceptions around functional medicine. And to many people, it's a new term, it's new terminology. What is functional medicine and what does a functional medicine practitioner focus on with their patients?
That's a wonderful question. And I think the best thing is, rather than saying functional medicine, we probably should think more about lifestyle medicine, because that's the main difference between traditional and functional. So traditional medicine is you have a symptom, you have a diagnosis, and you get a specific treatment to treat that. So if you're diabetic, you're going to get a medication to lower your blood sugar. If you have high blood pressure, you're going to have a medication to lower your blood pressure. It's not looking at what caused those issues in the first place. And that's what functional medicine does. It looks for the root cause of what's going on. So why are you diabetic? Let's treat that. Why do you have headaches? Let's treat that. Why are you struggling with, with weight or whatever you're struggling with? Let's treat what the root cause is, as opposed to just say, oh, let's give it a pill. Have an ill, take a pill kind of philosophy.
Man, and didn't we figure out somehow got an ill, take a pill was the right answer? And unless you're somebody like me that really does not like taking the pill, unless it's a vitamin, mm-hmm. It was like, there's got to be another way for me to feel better. Mm-hmm. If I've caught something or scraped something, or, and then there's times where that, you probably do need an antibiotic or something like that you do end up doing. But most of the time, and for most of us, we have learned that the ill to the pill is the right direction to go in. What do you see some of your patients that you've worked with? What have they come into? What have they thought that really takes them out of that space and makes them ask the question, is there something else that I can do? Is there somebody else that I might talk to?
Yes, a different way of looking at it. And I'd have to say that there are 2 things. You're either pulled by a dream, a goal, or something, a vision of how you want your life to be, or you are pushed by a wake-up call. Kind of like my wake-up call was the ICU. There's like Margaret that we worked with. Margaret wanted to be healthy. She wanted to eat well and everything, but every time she tried, the people around her would kind of pull her back, kind of like that crabs in a barrel kind of thing. And so she would kind of give it up until she started seeing the same things in her lab work and her testing that she was seeing in her family members down the road with diabetes and heart disease. And that was her wake-up call. I don't want to be that. So there are many people that we work with where that's the issue. They're tired of being overweight. They're tired of being tired. And they know that if they don't change something, it's only going to get worse. So that's that push. But there's also a pull. And so the pull is when, say, you have grandchildren coming, or like Dr. Habib, who changed his whole lifestyle because he knew he was going to have a baby, and he knew he had to kind of take charge of what was going on at that point. So it's either that push or pull. That's really what it is. And those are the things that make you change, because it's comfortable. It's comfortable to stay where you are, stay in your comfort zone, and continue doing what you're doing.
Some of this comfort because of what we were taught growing up that created some fear, some comfort that, there was fear of coming out of. And let's talk about women of color. Mm. Is it more important for women of color to look better, feel better? And is that what is sustainable in the pull? I know I've asked you a lot of questions here.
That has so much in it, but yes. Yeah.
Start wherever you please.
Wherever I want to. Well, the first thing that I would say is that I really don't think it's better to look or feel better. I think they're really interconnected. And if you think about it, when you feel good, right, you walk taller, you automatically look better. And the same thing around. When you look better, when you look in the mirror, you like the way you look, you start to feel better. There are actually therapies where, if you're depressed or low, or your mood is low, to put your body in a specific position. For instance, put a silly grin on your face for a minute or two, and you can't help but turn on those hormones that make you happy. Our body is so connected. What we think, how we feel, all of those things are connected. So in that sense, I think they're both connected. However, when you get into talking about Black women and health and looks and feeling, I think one of the biggest issues that we've come across is the whole love your body, your whole body way of thinking. And in some respects, it's wonderful, because you've got to love your body. If you don't love yourself and love your body, so many bad things can happen, and not just mentally, emotionally, but physically. You can start to pull and manifest that dislike into real physical ailments. But we also can't stay there. So one thing that I tell people is, yes, love yourself, but don't stay there. If you know that you have high blood pressure because they say, you're eating the wrong foods, you're eating the typical SAD diet, standard American diet. If you know your blood sugar is high because of that, yes, love yourself, but love yourself enough to make the changes so that you can get better, so that you can heal. That's what's so important, for us to make those kind of choices. And, the other thing is, when we talk about history and things of that sort, I think if even we look back, like right now, I would say the majority thought is that thinner is better than not. Okay, we're just going to say that. However, that's just right now. That was not a couple of centuries ago. A couple of centuries ago was exactly the opposite. So some of that had to do with the fact that if you didn't have money, you were thin. So if you were rich, you wanted to be big and full, So cultures change with time. That's completely true. But now that we know, centuries ago, we didn't know what we were doing. Now we know that the foods we put into our bodies are what determine our health long-term and our longevity. And so we can make those changes ourselves.
Oh, that was so great. And I love how you brought that to one of the principal things that we need to keep in mind. And it really is about loving yourself enough to change. And you mentioned the standard American diet, the SAD diet. And it's really painful to me, just a little bit, because I experienced what the SAD diet can do to you. And it wasn't until someone actually said, let's flip the pyramid. And in flipping the pyramid, we're seeing that there's a wide range of those foods that we could really eat that really were the best foods for us. Now, why they started out being at the bottom of the pyramid, I'm not quite sure, or maybe I'm even visualizing it incorrectly. But wherever the fruits and vegetables were was not the place where they were telling us to spend our time and effort and thinking. And we can see how the fast foods and the fried foods and the, cooking the foods until all of the nutrients were just cooked out of it, has spread not just across the US, but across the world, around the world. And so help our audience. I know a lot of us do know the whole fruits and vegetables, but as it relates to the food pyramid, the SAD diet, what really makes the SAD diet a sad diet that we should not be doing?
Okay. Well, I mean, even today, if you look at the FDA's food pyramid, it still really has grains on the bottom. So bread, potato, things of that sort are on the bottom, and then fruits and vegetables come a little later. But really what we're seeing, and all of the research is showing, that the more fruits and vegetables you eat, and now it's believed to be around 9 to 12 servings a day, which very few people, unless they are specifically making a choice to do that, are getting. So, if you're putting 9 to 12 servings of vegetables, there's not much space left for much else, as far as, bread or even the proteins and fats and things like that. So that's why the pyramid goes up that way. But we're seeing that longevity is linked to that kind of basis in plant-based foods, as well as, weight, blood pressure, blood sugar, all of these things, even mood, are related to the amount of vegetables that we eat, vegetables and fruit.
Absolutely. Something that I think that we have to come to understand more about. And, a lot of what was said to be a part of what breads and potatoes and things gave us, we can actually get from green leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables and our fruits. The sugars that we get from fruits, I've heard a lot of people say, well, I don't like fruits because it's the sugar thing. And I get my sugar from sugar, white granular sugar. And it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. But again, it's about what we know, what we've learned, what we've been taught over time. And knowing that a lot of the information that we've gotten has come from the big food and big pharma. We're looking at now, our sources of information are more grassroots, where initially a lot of the help of community and expanded community and family came from the grassroots type of injection into our lives. And when we're talking about functional medicine and functional practitioners, it's more like today, they're more of the grassroots of the movement to helping people to understand that healthy living, healthy lifestyle starts with a healthy diet, but there's more to it as well. What are some of the other things that you see as a part of what this healthy lifestyle entails?
Oh, absolutely. I love this question. So one of the areas, well, there are several areas around the world that I love to point people to show them what it can be like if you change your lifestyle, are called the blue zones. And these are areas around the world where people routinely live into their 90s, but not, not in a decrepit way. They are active, they are contributing to society. And the things that we see are they are careful about what they eat. They eat whole foods. They don't eat a lot of processed foods, something that we've come so far away from. But they also move all day. They're not just sitting there. A lot of times people think that they're getting enough exercise because they go to the gym for an hour, several times a week. But then they sit the rest of the day in front of a computer or at a desk or just kind of lounging on the couch. And so that level of inactivity is the opposite of what you need if you really want to be productive and healthy and energetic for a long period of time. But then there's also the social and emotional, and that's something that we also bring into our, to our members, is that if your emotions are out there, if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if your mood is low, it's difficult to live a happy and productive life. And what these blue zones have found is that a lot of that is connection with other people, kind of connecting and being social and being out with others. And I don't mean on a phone, kind of texting people, but literally getting around with them. And I know it's been difficult this past year, but there are ways to make it happen. And as we get further with managing COVID right now, we're being able to make those connections again in ways that are important.
Oh, that is so great. I think that the getting to the other side of COVID, people are really going to appreciate a little more reconnecting, having those connections. I know I will.
Oh, yes.
And I think that it's something that we've heard people asking about. It's like, how soon are we going to be able to get back? And it's not a getting back to. And I want to help people to realize that too, what we experienced before, we will, and I'm just going to say it, I'm kind of a disruptor type of person. We're not ever going to get back to that. What we're going to see is, and it's so great because we're seeing hybrids come in so many aspects of life. And we're going to see a hybrid of what we've been experiencing now, what we experienced before in live interactive engagement. And going forward, this hybrid is just going to be so much more valuable because we're going to be able to do so much more. When we think about, personal getting together, that's going to be exceptional. But have we not made some amazing connections with people all over the country, all over the world, that we would not have been able to experience?
Absolutely. Meeting you.
And likewise. Absolutely.
Yes.
And I just know that where we came from is a framework that, because we evolve, it's one of the things that I'm working on now is the evolving healthpreneur, the healthpreneur that's moving from, what they've been doing for the last decades and into this new space of having a digital footprint and having a digital presence. And I remember when I first stepped into this space, there was a lot of conversation around not wanting to have one because Big Brother will find you.
Oh.
And today, Big Brother has found you, whether you think you have one or not. So it's just like, come on, let's go with the flow, because you're able to help more people now with the work that you're doing and the way that you're doing it than you were previously. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, previously I was one-on-one, there were so many people I could see in a day and that was it. Now I can talk one to many. at the drop of a button, so it's so much easier.
And I love it because I know that there are millions of people out there who are in fact looking for solutions and unable to find them. And there is so much value in being in this space because you never know what one person is that finds you, whether that's because of they're just finding you on YouTube or, in this group or that group, or someone has said, you need to check that person out. Mm-hmm. That is the reason that they, in fact, find on their journey the answers that they've been searching for to shift some things. And, it also takes me back to the person who says, change. I've never been one that likes change, and I have a difficult time with change. Mm-hmm. And people who are even sitting in their illnesses mm-hmm. have this kind of a mindset. Have you come across this? And what have you told people like that who are in that space?
Well, that story about the dog, the old hound dog who's sitting on a nail on the porch, and he's just moaning and moaning and moaning, and somebody comes and says, "Why is your dog moaning?" And the owner says, "Well, he's laying on a nail." And, they say, "Well, why doesn't he just get up and move?" And he says, he doesn't want to do that. It's too much energy to get up and move. So that's what that would be like, someone who is ill or struggling with whatever it is that they're struggling with, but they don't want to make those changes. And there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, could you drag the dog off of the nail? Yes, you could, but that's not the answer. The answer is to show them what's possible and then support them to make those changes. And I learned the hard way that I cannot do that for people. I cannot make people change. I only can make it easier for people to do that. I can grease the way and tell them the shortest and easiest path to get there, but I can't make those changes for them. And that for me, for someone who, when she was 6 years old, wanted to help people feel better, that's a hard thing to learn, but I have.
Yes, that's it is. It's a hard thing to learn, and it's a hard thing to see people in when you know that there is a more loving way to get out of it and loving of self. We started off talking about listen, let go, and live, and I think that this is a great segue for you to kind of talk about what does that mean? Listen, let go, and live.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So listen to what your body is telling you, because your body is so wise. It knows exactly what you need at this particular time in life. And so if, whatever it is that you've been doing forever and ever and ever, if it's not working for you right now, your body's going to let you know. So for instance, for years, I still love eggs. I love eggs, and didn't realize until I got this full body rash that nothing could heal. This is back when I was still in traditional medicine, took steroids and creams and just put all of these things on. Didn't go away until we found out I had developed a sensitivity to eggs. And as soon as I stopped eating the eggs, rash went away. So that's the listening to. I didn't realize at that point that, that this rash was a sign that my body was not liking something I was giving it. And that's something that we can share with everyone listening. Things like rashes or headaches or joint pain or abdominal pain, symptoms are usually a sign that something's not right. And rather than covering up the symptom by, like I was trying to do, by taking a steroid to make the rash go away, that's not the answer. To listen to what's actually going on. And that kind of leads into let go. So let go of whatever isn't serving you. For me, it was eggs. As soon as I let go of the eggs, rash went away and I healed. but that can be lots of different things. And it's not just a food. It could be, say, movement. I say some people believe that, hot yoga is the thing and you've got to do hot yoga, but how many people don't like it and do it anyway? So let it go. If you don't like hot yoga, doesn't matter what everybody else says, just don't do it. And then the third one is live your own version of thriving. And by that, I mean, you know specifically what you love and what brings you joy. And when you listen to what your body's telling you, let go of what isn't, working for you, whatever's left over is what you need to really shore up. And that's living your own version of thrive. And when you do those three things, you don't need to have, you don't need to be on medication. You don't need to diet anymore. You just need to listen, let go, and then live.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that philosophy. And the fact that when you live by that type of a philosophy, it really changes things. It makes your outlook so much more positive, and it makes the changes that you may have to make easier.
Yes.
I think that we like to complicate things sometimes and make things harder for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, maybe it gives us something to talk about, or at least a means of justifying things for ourselves. Mm-hmm. When actually it goes back to something very simple, right? Love yourself enough to make the changes. And sometimes the change comes from learning something new. And you have to take the time to do that. What was one of the first things that helped you to see that this, holistic space? Was it a book, or was it a video, a documentary? What was one of the first things that helped you to really say, I am in this space?
Space now.
Yeah.
So I have to say that I actually was raised in a pretty holistic environment. My mom, they used to call her Dr. Jean. She had never gone to medical school or anything, but she was well into nutrition and health way back then. And I got away from all of that. And that's how I ended up with all of the issues that I had. So when it was time for me to really kind of take stock of what I was doing, that third time, to be totally honest, the third time I came out of the intensive care unit, I was so exhausted and so beat down that I couldn't even walk 15 feet to walk my dogs. That's how bad I was. And the only thing that I could do initially was change what I ate. So I started cleaning up my diet. And then when I started feeling better, I realized it was more to health and wellness than just what you ate. And that's when I started exploring the different holistic modalities of bringing in health. So functional medicine is more of a, medical look, but it does encompass eating what I call eating elite, eating what's right for you. It encompasses moving more. It encompasses living wisely. So that's your sleep, your hormones, your stress levels, and then loving divinely. So yourself, the people around you, and your divine. So that's what I consider being holistically well. And that's what I teach.
Beautiful. Is there like a playlist that you recommend to patients or clients, a book list or, some video or anything like that?
Good question. Well, if you want a small introduction, you definitely can look at our website. We try to give a general overview of what's going on. But then as far as a broader look at everything, I often recommend for meditation, mindset, and now even yoga, I recommend Insight Timer. That is a wonderful meditation app that has really broadened itself out. And then there are other sites like Dr. Mark Hyman, Chris Kresser. These are people who have been in this space for decades and really have paved the way for looking at health in this more holistic way.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So, what are some thoughts about people wanting to change, that have the influences on men, like in, the Black woman's culture, possibly, having heard, believed I'm just a big boned woman, and, I'm gonna carry this, which could probably be 50 pounds more than she necessarily in optimal health would. I'm a Black Amazon. There's nothing little about me. Some of the colloquialisms that we may have brought with us through our culture. And, not that we ever were kind of cut out to be a Twiggy or a Mani, or in a lot of cases, a ballerina, even though many of us may have had the ballerina experience growing up as little girls. We just ended up looking at, moms and grandmothers and aunts who, at that certain age were no longer this, vision of high school or college. And tell us your thoughts on why most women move to this space of, added weight and maybe even thinking it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a tough one. It really is a tough one. And I think part of it goes along with us believing that our genes control our life. That if mom had it, then I'm going to have it. If dad did it, then that's going to be me. And to that, I mentioned in my own life, I come from a family. And remember, I said my mom was very health conscious, and she was health conscious for a reason. Our health, our family's health, not just, immediate family, but 3 out of 4 of my grandparents, both of my parents, and a lot of their siblings died at early ages because of various medical conditions. Then this is despite everything that my mom had done. And, when I first looked at how long I was expected to live, where I am right now, 66, almost 67, I was about 5 years away from when both of my parents died. Okay. And that was one of the other things that was an impetus for me to make those changes. But now when I look at, my markers and things of that sort, my new longevity is in the 90s. So these are things that you can actually change. Your genes are not a death sentence. They're not something you are doomed to. So that's the very first thing that I would say. And then the second is, even though, and we're going to actually kind of bring something out as well, even though a lot of the studies that are out today are showing that a little bit of extra weight is not a bad thing. So we're not talking, obese and morbidly obese. We're talking what's considered overweight, especially as we get older. That's not necessarily a bad thing. However, the opposite of that is too much weight carried in the wrong places puts strains on our body, cardiovascular wise, blood sugar wise. So we really have to have that careful balance of where we are. Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. Yes. And that careful balance. I love how you said that. Because, if we are, I'll ask it this way. Is it safe to assume that if we are seeing the 50 pounds on the outside or 30 or whatever it is, that is not just, excess weight between the bone and the skin, that is actually excess weight within the organs? So your heart has fatty tissue, your liver, and would that be the case?
It often is, especially in men. Men actually tend to hold more of that fat internally. And as you were mentioning, that is of more concern versus external fat. So that is one very, very specific thing. But I also say, when we talk about, extra 50 pounds is not a big deal. Have you ever lifted up a 50-pound vest and walked around with that? And I say that because my daughter was training. She's now a firefighter, a paramedic. And she was training. They have to put on a 50-pound vest and run upstairs and things. That's part of their training. Well, I decided I would put her 50-pound vest on to just see. I could barely stand. Okay. So that's just, that's just one example of what that does. It's not just the fact that it doesn't look good or something of that sort. It's what it's doing to your heart. It's what it's doing to your lungs. I mean, just think about carrying that around every single day, what it does to your joints, your knees, your hips. This is why, if you're very much overweight, you're going to struggle with joint pain and things, especially in the lower extremity. So it's not just a matter of what it looks like. It's a matter of what it's doing to your body. And as I mentioned, are there people who can be a little overweight and still metabolically healthy? Yes, there are. But it's not necessarily the norm, and it's definitely not when you're in the obese and morbidly obese levels.
What a great explanation. Thank you for that. As we're kind of winding things up today, many of our conversations on the show actually dive into the subject of using food as medicine. You appear to be in excellent health with what we've talked about today. I'm so excited that you've shared such valuable information, and we can kind of imagine what the life of a medical doctor can be, having a family and running a thriving practice, working for a hospital, in your previous life. Today, what's your dietary regimen look like? What do you eat during a normal day?
I take it pretty easy. So what I do is Sundays, because I do love cooking for people. So I cook on Sunday for our family meals and usually make 3 different entrees. So we have we have Christmas every Sunday. And then for the next 3 days, I'll warm those things up. So I tend to eat, even for breakfast, I tend to eat leftovers, dinner leftovers for breakfast, especially since I can't eat eggs anyway. But I will vary that, and I will vary, even when I eat. So maybe a couple of days out of the week, I will intermittent fast and not eat until noon or 1 from the night before. So I'll do that. I'll have days where I'll increase the variety of the vegetables that I eat. And I eat mainly vegetables, but I do also eat chicken and fish, and rarely, maybe a couple of times a year, we'll have some red meat, but always organic, always grass-fed or, a wild caught, and not just for the health values, but also for what it means to the animals. That's important to me as well. We are all one, not just the people, but also the land that we live on, the animals that live on that land, and we're all one. And if we survive together, we thrive together. So we'll kind of go from there. So I vary that mainly because our bodies are made to fluctuate with what we eat, how often we eat, the number and amount of what we eat. Our bodies do best when they do that, as opposed to eating the same thing every day, same time every day. We just don't do as well with that. So I vary a lot.
Oh, that is so good. And so I asked all of my guests that question in some form. But I think it's important, especially for those who are on this journey, seeking this kind of information, to find out what those who are really helping people in this space are actually doing themselves. Mm-hmm. Because, I look at, and honestly, I was thinking about this the other day when a friend of mine was telling me about her visit to her doctor. And I didn't ask her this, but I was kind of envisioning it in my mind. I was like, are you seeing a healthy medical doctor? Because I've been fortunate enough to have been in spaces where gatherings of medical doctors have been, and I've looked around to see how many were actually fit or in that in-between space or in that space of, oh my gosh, you probably have some health issues yourself. I mean, they not youngsters, and they did appear that they were themselves struggling with the extra weight that they were carrying. So I always love to hear what our experts are saying they're doing in their lives and for their families, giving us examples and hope. You know, I wasn't doing this. I've heard enough stories. I was like, well, maybe I can do this.
Yes.
And making the change, you know, I love myself enough to make the change. And now, you know, even in my family, where, you know, there were probably days where there was meat on the plate 3 times a day. There are days where, you know, others have no meat on their plate. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Because I know that it's leading to better health for them.
Absolutely.
And I love the way that you brought in the plants and the people and the animals and the planet. We are all one. How did you say it? Surviving together is thriving together?
Thriving together. Exactly. Exactly.
Well said. Beautiful. Well, Dr. Susan, this has been such a pleasure spending this time with you and having our audience get to know you. As we're bringing our conversation to a close, is there some wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience to help make an impact in someone's life?
Well, I think the first thing would be, as have been talking about, listen, let go, and live. Listen to what your body's telling you, let go of what's not serving you, and live your own version of thriving. And trust the wisdom that it's giving you. You know, trust that if you're hearing that you should need a certain thing or do a certain thing, that that's the right thing for you right now. And as you were just saying, love yourself enough to start today, not Monday, today.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was so great. And thank you to our audience for showing up today, for hanging around and partaking of this wonderful conversation. We'd like to hear from you. So post a comment below. Let us know what it is that you got from this conversation. We want to do more like this for you. And we can only do that when you let us know what's on your mind. So comment below and share. Do us the favor of sharing. And if you're a health, wisdom, or wealth practitioner and you'd like to share your knowledge and expertise with our audience to be in this conversation, reach out to me. DM me, message me on Facebook, LinkedIn, email me at vlyn@p3academy.com. We are here. Let's connect. And for our audience, Dr. Susan, thank you once again. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
All right, everyone. Remember, where did it go? Oh, I just blew that. Oh, I wanted to show my slide that said, make sure to join us next week for another amazing show. And it just did not work out that way. So I'm going to just say, thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll see you next week. And remember to live, love, do what matters most in your life to live a better, healthier life. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.